Hello and welcome to Y Media's hosted debate for the 2022 provincial election. I am your host, Ramona Singh, and as we're doing a great and detailed minute-to-minute election coverage in this news cycle, and we're so happy to have the candidates here in studio joining us from Brampton South. You can catch all the Y Media election coverage on Y Media Plus, on Channel Y, on Radio Y, SouthAsianDaily.com, as well as a Midweek Newspaper. I want to introduce our CEO and the group editor, Yudhvir Jaswal. Welcome.
Thanks, Ramona. Thank you so much on behalf of Y Media Group. My name is Yudhvir Jaswal. I'm the group editor here. And as I've mentioned many times on our radio programs, on our TV channels, I think one of the best ways to serve the community is getting elected. But the question remains, who do we elect? Precisely that's the reason we are holding our election debates here. We will be doing a few ridings from Brampton, few from Toronto, and few from Mississauga as well. And as Ramona has already mentioned, all these election debates will be broadcasted on Channel Y, Y+. We will be discussing different topics. Infrastructure is one of the key topics that we'll be discussing, affordability, healthcare, environment, and a host of other issues. Thank you so much, Ramona, and I wish all the best to all our candidates. All the best. Thank you.
So the candidates we have in studio at Y Media are PC Brampton South candidate Parmeet Sakaria. Thank you for joining us today. We have Liberal candidate from Brampton South, Marilyn Raphael. Thank you for joining us. We have NDP Brampton South candidate Andrea Barrett. Thank you for joining us as well. And the way the debate will go today, this is the breakdown. There are 4 sections. The first section is introductions. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to do their introductions. I will be doing a countdown. I will give you a 30-second and a 15-second mark. There's the second portion of it, which is the Q&A. You'll get 2 questions there, and you have 2 minutes to answer and 1 minute to do rebuttal. And that rebuttal is if your party or your name is brought up in the answer. And the third section is an open discussion. There are 6 topics. Yudhvir and myself will take turns in the discussion for those topics. That is 5 minutes each. It is open for all of you to join in as you see fit, although we will start with 1 candidate. So it is an open discussion. The 4th section is closing remarks, and there's 1 minute, and I will be doing all the countdowns for you.
Yeah, and at this point, just for our viewers' benefit, I'd like to tell you that we did invite all the candidates. Whenever we were hosting any debate for any riding, all the candidates were sent emails, they were invited. And just in case you see any candidate missing, so precisely the reason could be that they didn't show up. Thank you, please.
Thank you. So we'll start with the open remarks, and we've done a count. So we'll start with the NDP candidate. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I love the city of Brampton, and I'm very proud to call Brampton home. And for all my Bramptonians, I know that you're proud to call Brampton home too. My family grew up here. They raised our family here. I had the opportunity to live in a multi-generational household with my grandmother. Family is very important to me. I work in Brampton. I play in Brampton. Brampton is home. We have seen over the last 4 years that we are having a really hard time here in Brampton. Things have become unaffordable. And as Bramptonians, I want the best for myself and my family. I want the best for you and your family. Things are expensive, and we deserve better. We need better in healthcare. We need better in education. We need to treat our workers better. Think about your children. Think about your grandchildren. Think about your parents. We need to do everything we can do to keep Brampton as successful and prosperous as we can. The NDP is working for you. It is our responsibility to you as our taxpayers to make life affordable and to make life comfortable. We all want a better Brampton. And as your NDP candidate for Brampton South, I'm hoping that you will lend and give me your support so that I can fight and advocate for you for a better Brampton for all of us. That means better health care. That means better in education. That means better in wages. This simply means a better life for you and a better life for family.
30 seconds.
I will end it there.
Thank you. And now we'll go on to the Liberal candidate.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Raphael. I'm your Ontario Liberal candidate in Brampton South. I'm a vice president in business and product governance at TD Asset Management. I run a not-for-profit with my husband where we work with high potential, diverse candidates that are interested in breaking into corporate Canada. I'm a mom of 2 young boys, and I'm really committed to advancing some of the key issues here in Brampton. A lot of people ask me why politics after all the things that I've been doing and can be doing. And while I know that you can make a difference in every sector, the reality is in politics, it's where decisions that are made every single day that impact our daily lives. And so when I think about my boys and I think about my family and I think about what happened over the last 4 years and the last 2 years in particular with the pandemic, I think about the young kids in Brampton who marched across the entire riding because the education system is failing them. They remind me of my own kids, and I'm concerned about the quality of education here. I'm the daughter of school teachers. I know that education helps level the playing field, and I know we have to strengthen that to see the outcomes that we really want for our families. When I think about what happened during the pandemic with Grace Manor, our own long-term care facility here in Brampton South, it breaks my heart to know underinvestment, lack of commitment to helping our seniors age gracefully and with dignity makes me realize we need to invest in long-term care and support home care in ways that we've never invested in before.
30
really,
seconds.
In rethinking through long-term care. I also think about just the general affordability and the opportunities that seem to be out of reach in the last few years as things have skyrocketed under Doug Ford's government. Things have got to change. The status quo is no longer acceptable, and I'm running to fight for you.
Time's up. Thank you. And now the PC candidate.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and Yadoo and the entire Y Media team. The last 4 years have been an absolute honor, the honor of a lifetime to serve Bramptonians at Queen's Park, finally having a voice for Brampton at Queen's Park. You know, over the past 4 years, we have made significant investments into Brampton, but it starts now with building Ontario and the future that we see. It starts with rebuilding our economy, making sure that we have good paying jobs. It means working for workers, attracting good paying jobs that will provide bigger paychecks for residents across Brampton and Ontario. It means making the necessary investments into infrastructure and highways across the province so we can build Ontario. It means keeping costs low and affordable for families in Brampton and across the city. And it means also having a plan to stay open. When we look at the city of Brampton, in the past 4 years, we've gotten more investments into the city than the past 15 years of Liberal mismanagement combined. This means $1 billion of new investments in electric vehicle manufacturing right here in Chrysler through Stellantis. That's going to provide significant opportunities for Brampton families. It means building highways like Highway 413 that will save commuters 30 minutes each way. It means building the new Ryerson Medical University that's going to allow doctors to graduate right here in the city of Brampton. It means putting more money in your pockets, whether that is through refunds of your license plate stickers, tax cuts for those earning less than $50,000, but it also means investing in critical infrastructure like hospitals, building the second hospital that Brampton so desperately needs, and a 24/7 emergency room. Only Doug Ford and the Ontario PC government will get shovels in the ground and start building and provide the necessary needs for Bramptonians.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the second section, which is the Q&A, starting with Yadoo Jaswal asking his question.
Thank you. I think healthcare at the federal level and of course at the provincial level is one of the big ticket items as far as our budget is concerned. Marilyn, why don't I start with you? The Liberal Party, they were in power before the PC government, and Brampton, the same population as Hamilton has, but it just has one full-fledged hospital. Why weren't the Liberals able to build second or precisely third or even the fourth hospital?
It's a great question. You know, I think a lot of people are to blame for the lack of investment in the hospital and the healthcare sector. We know that one of the main issues that needs to be addressed when it comes to healthcare is around changing something called our funding formula. Brampton is a high growth city, and the lack of political will to make changes into the hospital sector based on changing that funding formula was an issue that all the representatives that have come forward before us were not able to champion. We have to own that. The Liberals weren't able to kind of make some of those significant changes, and we made decisions in doing other things in Brampton. But I do think it's important to say that while I hear sometimes our PC government make claims that they've made the most investments in healthcare, the reality is, if you don't make changes fundamentally into healthcare in Brampton, we will always be behind. This promise of 250 beds does not even bring us to the national average, and we are still going to be under capacity even when we convert Peel Memorial into a full-fledged hospital. That conversion was something that was already outlined in the Ontario Liberal plan. They were sat on it for several years, and only now, in the last 2 years, after seeing what happened with the pandemic, now they want to move forward and make the claim that now they're investing in healthcare here in Brampton. What happened to the last 2 years? What happened to the first 2 years in their government, and making sure that we can move that agenda forward?
Yeah, and I'd like to ask you, what plans does NDP have? You know, we're having so many foreign trained professionals come over here. We go to the emergency department, but still we always say, yes, there is a lack of trained professionals in the medical system. So what's the NDP's plan, and how often has the NDP, being the official opposition here in Ontario, have you highlighted this question that foreign trained professionals, especially in the medical field, they need to be integrated here in the medical field?
Absolutely, that's a great question. Foreign trained nurses, foreign trained workers. So my father was in the hospital for a month. He was at Brampton Civic, and when he was discharged, we had a wonderful foreign trained nurse. Her name was Sandeep. Sandeep took such good care of my father, and she took great care of my mother. My mother wasn't her patient, but she would always make sure my mother was okay. It is important that we take care of the hospital system, which is under-resourced. We need all of these nurses. So the NDP plan, and the NDP is the official opposition. There are 40 seats right now at the NDP. There was a bill that we put forth by MPP Dolly Begum that said we wanted to validate and recognize the credentials of foreign trained nurses. 15,000 nurses we are ready to accept, 2,000 right away. Our hospitals are understaffed. Brampton has been ignored 15 years by the Liberals, and the Ford government has ignored us. We have one hospital that I was at last week, one hospital. We need two more. We should have 3 fully functioning hospitals right here in Brampton for my family and for yours. We need a cancer care center. We need to do better by Bramptonians. It is not right that we have left behind. We deserve better.
All right. Now let's talk about the wait times, you know. Whenever anybody enters an emergency department, who has this much time to wait for 4 hours, 6 hours? You've been in power for good 4 years now. What do you think should be the wait time anybody who hits the door of an emergency department in any hospital in Ontario or right across Canada?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge, where we've started with, since forming government, one of the first things that we did as a government and now in the past 2 years was actually increase capacity in our local hospital system. The previous Liberal government underfunded, there's no doubt about it, underfunded all of Brampton, ignored it. They were propped up by the NDP for 3 years when they held the balance of power. And this was never an issue. They'll talk a big game, but they'll never deliver. Only our government has been able to deliver. In the short term, in the past just 2 years, we've added 87 new beds to William Alster's healthcare system that made an immediate impact for families across the province. And just a couple months ago, we added an additional mental health beds because that's also a significant issue. So building more capacity, in our infrastructure plan that we outline over $160 billion over the next 10 years, $40 billion of that is committed to increasing hospital beds across the province. That means 3,000 new beds all across Ontario, $40 billion in capital infrastructure, including the 3,100 new beds that we have put in place since March of 2020. So we need to continue building on the progress that we've made, investing in a healthcare system, but it also means investing in building long-term care homes. We're the government that put forward over $6 billion of expenditure to make sure we can build 30,000 new long-term care homes. From 2011 to 2018, the entire province of Ontario got 611 new long-term care beds. In just our 4 years, we have announced 680 long-term care beds, culturally specific long-term care beds, whether it be the Guru Nanak long-term care home, Indus Community long-term care home, or through our other long-term care partners across Brampton as well. So those investments are needed. We're making them. Unfortunately, we were ignored by both the Liberals and when the NDP held the balance of power as well.
Marilyn, 1 minute for the rebuttal. Both the candidates did ask questions on the Liberals' track record of the healthcare. Please.
You know, I think sometimes the Conservative strategy is to talk about how much announcements that they've made without actually delivering any sort of capital funding to make things actually happen. So we've heard from our PC counterpart here some of the investments that have been made in William Osler's. I don't see that actually changing in Brampton, and I think that's important to be very clear and explicit about what has actually happened in Brampton. We know that the current Peel Memorial Hospital requires an extra $250 million of local share funding to actually be built. That money is not here, and if that money is not available, they will have to figure out how to take out debt to be able to see that project through to completion. It's important for all of our audience, all the constituents, to hold this government to account and ask them, where is the money? Where is the money to actually see these projects implemented? We've heard from the Minister of Finance that even with the budget that they've tabled, pre-election budget, that is not something they are committed to seeing through to action, and that is important for us to hold this government to account. It's wonderful to come to Brampton and do all of these announcements, but we know that it's important to actually see the money.
Thank you.
Thank you, NDP's candidate, to respond. 1 minute.
The people that I meet when I go door to door in Brampton, they are either angry or they're upset. People tell me when they're going to the hospital, they're not going to Brampton Civic. They're going to Georgetown or they're going to Mississauga. That is not right. We live here and our hospital should take care of us here. Both the Conservative and the Liberal governments have failed us as Bramptonians. We have been ignored and we deserve better. We need 3 fully functioning hospitals. The NDP will deliver that for you. We need a cancer care center. We will deliver that for you. We need more nurses, and we know that we should look at our foreign trained nurses to make life more comfortable and to take care of our neighbors. We're all Bramptonians. You're my neighbor. You deserve better, and it is our job to take care of you. The NDP is the only government that will take care of you.
All right, thanks, Andrea. And 1 minute for you.
Thank you very much. You know, when we talk about foreign trained professionals, the NDP had an opportunity to support our plan to stay open, and they failed to recognize that not just nurses, but doctors and healthcare workers, when we put forward a plan to expedite foreign trained credentials for medical doctors, for nurses, they actually voted against that. Not only that, they voted against a $1 billion increase to PSW, DSW wages. You know, both the Liberals and NDP will do a lot of talking. The only people that will actually invest in the infrastructure needed for a city like Brampton are Doug Ford and the Ontario PC party. That's why we committed to building a second hospital and making sure that it has a 24/7 emergency room, along with a cancer care center. Right now, individuals leave the city to receive cancer care. Our government recognized that we need that investment right here in the city, and that's why we announced it in our budget.
I think I'm glad all the 3 candidates would at least agree that there's lots that need to be done as far as more investment, more spending is concerned. Ramona ji, I'll pass on to you now.
Absolutely. The next question is on healthcare. Again, you have 2 minutes to answer the question, and if you're brought up, then you have 1 minute for rebuttal. This time what I'll do is, so I don't interrupt you, I will put this up. Just look over every now and then. This is your 30-second mark and your 15-second mark, okay? All right, so on mental health. In any given year, 1 in 5 Canadians experience mental illness. Mental illness and substance use in Ontario is 1.5 times higher than all cancers put together and more than 7 times that of all infectious disease. In Ontario, mental illness and substance use disorder account for between 11% and 15%, but for funding, it only receives 7% of healthcare dollars. How is your party going to address mental health, and how does it differ from the other party platforms? And we're going to start with the Liberal candidate, Marilyn Raphael.
I think PC candidate.
Yes, correct. PC candidate Gurmeet Sakaria, please take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very important question, and we've seen the significant impact on the mental health and well-being of individuals, especially during the pandemic. Our government made a commitment of $3.8 billion over the next 10 years. Much of that investment continues to be made today, but we have a roadmap to wellness plan that we put forward that invests in those supports that are so desperately needed across Ontario. Unfortunately, though, that funding was not available, but as soon as we got elected, we made sure that we committed to building our infrastructure around mental health and mental health care. So that $3.8 billion over the next year. And in addition to that, just in the past month of February and March, we announced additional $90 million for addiction and recovery funding, of which you see a significant amount of beds being produced all across the province, especially in the north where we see challenges, even here in Brampton where we see challenges. So our government has always been focused on supporting the mental health, and we actually put the dollars to support that investment. $3.8 billion. It's the largest investment any government has ever made to tackle mental health, and we'll continue to build on that. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, I was with Peel police officers who have been able to use some of that funding for mental health to incorporate social workers into policing. So then when they do go to some of the calls that they take on the road, sometimes social workers are very necessary and needed to de-escalate certain situations. And that's been a very successful program that we've been able to fund. So finding innovative solutions is something that's very important as we work through the challenges of that we see across the province. But we put the money into these investments, $3.8 billion over the next 10 years.
Thank you so much. And the same question, it goes for the NDP candidate.
There was a mental health crisis before the pandemic, and we just know that the pandemic just exasperated everything. We saw how in pain a lot of our community was, Bramptonians everywhere, and especially children. I'm speaking directly to parents or anybody dealing with a mental health crisis. You need help, and we're going to help you. What the NDP plans to do is put mental health services underneath OHIP. Mental health is health. We think it all falls under the same umbrella. If you are in crisis and you need help, there should not be a financial barrier. You should not have to go deep into your wallet and struggle to afford services. Your health card should cover the mental health services that you need. It is more important now than ever before that we help everyone at all ages that is dealing with the mental health crisis. And why should there be a barrier? If this is not something you can pay out of pocket and afford, this is something that your government should support and take care of. So this will be put under the OHIP with an NDP government, because we believe that your mental health is part of health.
Thank you so much. And now we'll go to the Liberal candidate, Marilyn Raphael.
I think we can all agree here that a lot of people's mental health has been challenged over the last 2 years. I had a chance to speak with Pastor Ross at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Brampton South. They told me about some of the people who are dealing with drug overdoses and dying at the footsteps of the church. Very serious crisis in Brampton. Our downtown Brampton has a lot of challenges with people struggling with addictions and mental health challenges, as well as many families ourselves that we know that the young people have struggled over the last few years. We are committing to investing an additional $3 billion over 4 years, not 10 years, that the Doug Ford government wants to invest in for mental health and addiction services. We'll also hire 1,000 mental health professionals to be in the schools, and we will require private employer benefits to include mental health services. One thing we know is that mental health is part of the comprehensive health experience, and we know we need to invest in it fully, and that is how we're committed to addressing that issue.
Thank you. And PC candidate Parmeet Sakaria, you have a chance for a rebuttal for 1 minute.
Absolutely, thank you. And you hear a lot of talk from both parties about what their plans are. But they're going to study these plans. They're going to debate these plans. But there's only one government that will actually invest the dollars. Since day one, to date, we've invested over $786 million. When the Liberals held power, there were no investments into mental health. We put $3.8 billion over the last since we got elected over the next 10 years into actually supporting those with mental health needs. And to continue building on that, we need to make sure that we re-elect a progressive conservative government to ensure that investments keep being made and that we continue these projects.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to the third section, and this is the open discussion, starting with Jadoo Jaswal.
Thank you so much. In this open discussion, I want to start with infrastructure. And this is an open discussion, which I want to focus on when we talk about infrastructure. Of course, there are many things, whether it's building universities, hospitals, or other things. But mainly, I want to focus right now, $25 billion. That's what your budget has allocated as far as infrastructure, especially the highways, is concerned. we've been listening, NDP and Liberals, they have other plans. They do not want to support Highway 413 here. And I must say a very important point over here that when we're talking about infrastructure, only the difference being all three parties are definitely going to run deficits, some in the tune of $19.9 billion, PCs and Liberal. The NDP certainly want to run a deficit of $21.5 billion, but if at all we're spending that much money, are we really spending it for a worthy cause? That's my key question. Why do I want to start with you? Praveen Sarkaria, the PC candidate, $25 billion in your budget. How are you going to justify that amount spending on highways?
Yeah, we're spending $25 billion on highways, especially on highways like Highway 413 that's right here in the city of Brampton. You know, when I'm at the doors, I talk to families every single day. You know, imagine having 30 minutes more to spend with your family, whether it be in the morning and at night, rather than being stuck in gridlock. You know, we look at the economic opportunity that highways bring. We're going to have 8,000 new jobs that are created by building Highway 413. We're going to be supporting over $350 million of GDP growth right here in the city of Brampton. And consider the trucking logistic hub that Peel region is. We need these highways. Over the next 5 years, we are going to add 1 million people into the GTA. Go down Steeles, Mayfield, Queen, 410, bumper to bumper traffic. And when I talk to people on the doors, they're excited about getting new infrastructure built for Brampton, like highways. $25 billion is just on highways. We're building subways. We're getting shovels in the ground. $30 billion, the largest public infrastructure project to build subways, shovels in the ground, happening in Toronto right now with the Ontario line. You know, LRT projects across the province, making sure we build the Bradford bypass, the Ring of Fire. Those are significant projects that will get the shovels in the ground.
At this point, I would like to bring in the Liberal candidate, and your leader is opposing that. Why is that?
So, we're opposing the Highway 413 because all the economic analysis, all the environmental analysis shows that the benefits do not outweigh the costs. These numbers that these conservatives like to throw around saving you 30 minutes commute is false. There is no evidence to support that. In fact, the studies that were conducted before show that it shaves off about 30 seconds of commuting time. If the issue is around transporting people and transporting goods, the question is around how can we figure out and explore other alternatives without damaging the environment. This proposed Highway 413 is going to go through precious farmland and wetlands that can never be rebuilt. One of the proposals that has been tabled is around the boulevard option. Okay, so this is the option. This is a transit corridor that Brampton City Council voted 11-0, including that PC candidate that's running in Brampton Center, Mayor Patrick Brown. These people were all in favor of this boulevard option, which allows homes to be built, allows freight and people to be moved. The Ontario Liberals are proposing and supporting that boulevard option. We are also putting forward our transit plans and to decrease transit fares to $1 on every single transit system, including GO Transit each way. That will take 400,000 cars off the road. The evidence shows that highways do not stop congestion. Please do not fall for this false narrative. It is inaccurate, but we know that this conservative will tell you anything just because they think that is what you want to hear. That is not what we hear at the doors. People don't want more highways. People want help for their families. People are having affordability challenges. They need some more money in their pocket. They want their kids to be doing well. And that is really what we're solving. We're solving for families and addressing the needs that are impacting people today.
Thank you. Andrea, what are the other options that you suggest? Because I do understand that NDP is also opposing this Highway 413.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you talk about infrastructure, the first thing I think about is post-secondary education. When the Ford government came into power, Ryerson University was cut, it was scrapped. We had a university coming right downtown Brampton, a place for your young people to go and study. Immediately upon being elected, they canceled that plan. And we need another university. And we support a medical school. And also, again, these hospitals we talked about. When we bring these in, and this is infrastructure, thousands of jobs. These are good paying jobs. We need skilled workers, we need trained workers right here in the city of Brampton to make our city more prosperous and to grow our economy. When it comes to transportation, we are very excited that we're going to have two-way GO service on the Kitchener line all the way down to Toronto. So imagine you're downtown Brampton, you're going to hop on the GO train, you're going to get down to City of Toronto if that's where you're going. two-way all day. Also, the Huron-Ontario LRT, which will have that loop back. This is what people are looking for. And when it comes to fares, we're going to have a flat fare because we know it's about money and it's about economics. We want to keep money in your pocket as Bramptonians. We're cutting our insurance, that puts money in your pocket. Single fare for public transportation, that puts money in your pocket, which alleviates congestion on the road. I drive in the city of Brampton, just like you, up and down Kennedy, Steeles, Mayfield, Queen Street. We want to give more space to the truckers. Trucking is essential to the city of Brampton. These are our truckers, and we need to keep the roads as clear as we can for them. They are transporting goods and foods that are part of our economy. So we do our part to give the truckers their space so they can do what they can do to take care of their families and take care of everybody in the city of Brampton.
Yeah, before we wrap up, 1 minute or 1.5 minutes, actually 30 seconds for each one of you. I'm sure you don't want to leave me more confused than I am already on this particular one. Can anybody refer me any study, that this study, and give me your source as well, that this is a study done? How do we really make sure there is less of a congestion, whether it's with highways or transit system, whatever? Please refer the source of the study as well. And anybody?
Well, I'm happy to speak to that.
Go ahead.
You know, we have incredible public servants that work with the government that have worked, you know, a significant amount of years that look at transit and transit corridors across the province. And everything, you know, just, you know, ask yourself this. We're going to add 1 million people to the GTA over the next 5 years. You know, look at the gridlock that you currently see on the streets of Brampton. We're going to build LRTs. We're going to build subways. But unfortunately, both the NDP and Liberal candidates refuse to build the necessary infrastructure on highways for the people of Brampton. That's very unfortunate. And I know the people will, on June 2nd, choose the option of highways and subways and LRTs, because that's how we know we're going to ease gridlock and build the province.
Thank you, Andrea.
We cannot trust this government. They've said all sorts of things and haven't followed through. Is there a Ryerson University downtown Brampton? Think about this. Would you rather sit in traffic, or would you rather sit in an emergency waiting room with your mom or your dad or your baby? Think about what is important to you. $10 billion in 10 years for Highway 413. Could there be tolls on it? Think about that.
Thank you. Merlin.
I don't even know what to say anymore.
Any study which you want to refer? You just said...
I listen, we can go get the environmental assessments, because the environmental assessments were being conducted when the Liberals were in fact in government. It was based on the recommendations of the public servants who conducted that study that Highway 413 was shelved accordingly, because at that time it was determined that the benefits did not outweigh the costs. The costs were too great, and they would be there for decades and years to come, and we would not be able to recoup any sort of those benefits.
Thank you, Ramona.
Thank you so much. Since this is an open discussion, I will ask the next question. It is about Brampton. So feel free to join in on the conversation. I won't call you. All I'll do is give you this at a 30-second mark after when we're close to the 5-minute mark. So as soon as you hear it, I'm going to start with NDP candidate Andrea Barrett, so you can start, but anytime the rest of you want to join in, please join on the conversation. So Brampton, for far too long, has not received its fair share when it comes to infrastructure, hospital, university, you name it, transit. Essentially, if we just do a comparison between municipalities, Vaughan, that has a population of about 300,000 plus, and where Brampton is double that population. Vaughan just got a brand new hospital that launched in 2021. They got the extension of subway connecting to Toronto. Brampton got none of those, as well as when you compare Hamilton and Brampton with the same population, Hamilton has four hospitals and Brampton does not even have 2. So what is your vision for Brampton, and what do you guys want to accomplish? I'm going to start with NDP candidate.
My vision for this Brampton that I love, that I was raised in, that we know can be prosperous and successful. You've just basically said it. So our population, we're just under 700,000 people. We have 1 hospital. We don't have our own post-secondary education. That's because previous governments have ignored us and left us behind. The Liberal government were in power for 15 years and didn't do anything for Brampton. And we know what happened in the last 4 years with the Conservative government. All these promises, and they've just been broken. We don't have a post-secondary education for your kids to go to school close to home. We don't have further hospitals or more staff. My sister is a nurse. She works in a long-term care center right here in Brampton, taking care of people's loved ones. Our seniors deserve better, our parents deserve better. When I think of my Brampton, I think of post-secondary education that my neighbors' children can easily hop on Brampton Transit and go to school. They're studying they want to be doctors, they're going to the medical school in Brampton. They're working at one of 3 fantastic Brampton hospitals, where Brampton is recognized as an epicenter of genius, where we have great medical staff and great innovation. I'm looking for a Brampton that has great transit opportunities for young people when they're going to
We're
work.
almost at a 3.5 mark. If you guys want to join in.
A great place where we get what we deserve. We get our fair share, and we're just treated with more respect. Having MPPs that stand up and fight for us.
Here are the facts. In the last 4 years of a PC government under the leadership of Doug Ford, we have received more investments into Brampton than the previous 15 years of the Liberal government combined. That's a new hospital for the city of Brampton that was neglected by the previous Liberal and NDP governments. That's a new highway, Highway 413, billions of dollars investments into the city. That's a new medical school that is going to be held by Toronto Metropolitan University right here in the city of Brampton. 170 graduates every single year, doctors, focused on healthcare right here in the city of Brampton. We're going to be building long-term care homes. 680 new beds are coming into the city after getting absolutely nothing for the past 15 years. Our government, the Premier, has always committed to supporting Brampton families and making sure that we get the fair share that we need that was neglected. And the NDP can promise whatever they want, but they're going to study it. They're going to go and make, hire consultants. There's only one government that will actually get the job done, get the shovels in the ground, and start building. That's a government under Doug Ford and PC
I think it's
and the
important to
PC
mention,
party.
Since my colleague here has mentioned the studying and the planning, this government here came into power, removed our commitment to build a university here, recognized that there was outrage from the community because people really want their children to be trained locally, to study here. Then they decide that now they want to support this idea of a medical school, but now instead of actually putting some money towards building that, all they get is $1 million planning budget to study it. It's amazing how they want to call people out for studying issues, and that is in fact the very thing that they are doing. I do think that the NDPs are also not going to be able to see some of these things through because, to be honest, they're not going to form government. And this kind of narrative that they have only 40 seats and therefore they only have 10 more to go is a false narrative. And the reality is only Liberals beat Conservatives. And so if we're talking about the progressive vote, if we're talking about making things actually happen here in Brampton, you can't vote for the NDP and see it happen. It's going to have to be a Liberal government that's going to actually beat the Conservatives to be able to see some of these things move forward. The Conservatives have been in power for 4 years with a majority government. If they wanted to get something done, it could have been done. They voted against a third hospital. This is not a government that understands fully the issues that Bramptonians face and are actually committed to seeing things happen. If ever you were going to be given a chance to see the changes, you could have seen it because they came in on this promise of making changes to Brampton. They're coming against the 15 years Liberal government, but what have they actually delivered in 4 years? Nothing. That's important to recognize.
You guys have 30 seconds, and what I'll do is I'll give you each 30 seconds of what your plan is for Brampton and how soon can Bramptonians expect what it is you're promising. So if you can give a timeline for that.
Absolutely. We got our investments happening immediately. Unlike the Liberals and NDP who will talk and talk and talk and not deliver, we put the money in our budget. $160 billion for infrastructure, $40 billion on just hospitals, including the Brampton Hospital right here, the medical university that Ryerson or Toronto Metropolitan University will hold right here in the city of Brampton. Both of the Liberals and NDP will talk, but none of them will get shovels in the ground like we will on projects like Highway 413, a new hospital with a 24/7 emergency room, and critical infrastructure like long-term care beds all across the city. There's only one government that will get it done, and that's Premier Doug Ford.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So in our platform, we were very explicit about the commitments to Brampton. That includes our hospital development of Peel Memorial, as well as the commitment to the third hospital, as well as commitment to the Cancer Care Center. These are the 3 healthcare projects that the Ontario Liberals have committed to. On infrastructure, we are committed to, transit and transportation and infrastructure there. We are committed to building the Boulevard, the Main Street LRT, and the Queen Street BRT. There is no mention here from the PCs about doing those critical infrastructure projects that City Council has asked for, that Bramptonians have asked for, and those are key things that we're going to see get done here in Brampton.
Thank you.
Immediately, everyone who lives in Brampton, we are dealing with postal code discrimination. Immediately upon election, we will ban postal code discrimination. Discrimination of any kind is wrong, and that includes postal code discrimination. We pay way too much in car insurance compared to other cities. We will put money back in your pocket, and that's what this is about. Things are really, really expensive and unaffordable. We will put money back in your pocket. On average, $660. If you're a Bramptonian, that's $2,000.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to go to the next question for open discussion.
Yeah, this is once again an open discussion forum. We'll have 5 minutes, so I'll ask an important issue. I think it has surpassed the COVID as well. The number one issue right now which Ontarians are facing, and we hear this on our radio shows, we listen this on our TV talk shows as well, that is affordability. And I think this has been the key issue. The prices are going through the roof, whether it's the gas prices, furniture, electronics, any household items, or for that matter, even housing sector as well. So Marilyn, why don't we start with you, our Liberal candidate, and please feel free to give your opinions. So we have 5 minutes opening the floor for this discussion.
The Ontario Liberals have put forward a suite of options to address the affordability crisis that we are facing. We've announced our $1 fares for all transit transportation across GO station as well as kind of city municipality transfers. We've also announced that we will remove all the HST for prepared foods under $20. We know that groceries already do not have HST on it. We know that childcare is probably one of the most expensive line items for families, and we are committed to not only maintaining the $10 a day childcare, but we will extend that to be $10 a day for before and after school care.
But we can do that faster. We will be able to do that faster. So it's clear that life is becoming very, very expensive. Car insurance, hydro, and housing. When I meet people, their grown kids are still living at home because it is unaffordable. The NDP will put more money in your pocket. Gas is expensive, hydro is expensive, car insurance is expensive, housing is expensive. We need to do our part to make things more affordable for you. Because we know that past governments, Liberals and the Conservatives, have left us behind, and what are they doing to the province of Ontario? Last election, we see that the Liberals, they only have 7 seats. Voters made a choice, and they were reduced to 7 seats. We have experienced and lived through the last 4 years of the PC government. Ask yourself, is your life better or is your life harder?
When we speak about affordability, though, the hypocrisy through the NDP is astounding. You know, they just came out with their platform yesterday, and they're saying they're going to increase gas tax by 5.7 cents. How out of touch do you have to be with the reality of what is happening on the ground? As a party platform, increasing the tax on gas, which only our government put forward legislation and committed to putting more money into the pockets of hardworking, not only Bramptonians, Ontarians. It's unfortunate that the NDP and the Liberals don't want to support tax cuts on gas to make life more affordable. But it's not only that. You know, when we got elected, we made a promise to put more money in your pocket. You know, just a couple of months ago, we recognized that the license plate stickers, which many of the viewers here today might have already received rebates for, $125 per car. It was a cash grab. That money belongs in your pocket. When we look at income tax cuts,
a way to purchase your votes. And I think Bramptonians are smart enough to know that giving me $10 a month for the entire year is not a promise that I need from a government. Yes, I can get $120 for a year. Thank you so much for that relief. Does that mean that you're addressing my high childcare costs? The fact that I can't purchase a home? The fact that gas is expensive? No, the $120 does not solve solve your problem. It's very clear that it was an election ploy. It was a way to get you guys to think that things are feeling a little better. Listen, I used that money and I invested in my own campaign, and I know a lot of people who got that money were really upset that the Ford government decided to just try and buy your votes at the last minute instead of putting forward policies and initiatives that are really going to solve your problems.
The only party going to solve your problem is the NDP government.
It's not going to happen.
Think about,
okay, let's be
think
100%
about
clear.
think
the
about your
NDPs
insurance.
are not
The
going
Liberals only
to
have
be able.
7 seats. They only
It's
have
not
7
going
seats.
to be happen.
They
The
only have
NDP
7
is making
seats.
an announcement that they're going to
There is
decrease.
one leader
That they are going
that
to
can beat the Ford
decrease.
government.
That they are
is
going
one
to decrease
leader
car
that can
insurance
beat
by
the Ford.
40% is
Many
nonsense.
people don't know who the leader of the
okay?
Liberal Party is.
They're
There
going
is
to
one leader
decrease.
who can beat the Ford government. If you are fed up and tired and frustrated and need a better life in Brampton like you deserve, one leader can beat the Ford
I'm
government.
so glad that you said
should
everybody
ask-
does know Andrea
you
Horvath.
should
The reason they
ask
know
your
Andrea Horvath is
MP
because she
currently,
has
why
been
did-
the leader
why
of the
didn't
opposition
you do anything for insurance?
4 years.
Why didn't you help the people in our city lower their car insurance?
Official opposition for 4
Everyone should find out why we
years.
still pay high
If the
levels of
NDPs
car
were
insurance.
ever going
Why
to beat
are-
the PCs,
why
it would have
didn't
been
your
in
MPP
2018
fight
because
45
the
fight
seconds.
for you. It
45
is up
seconds.
to your MPP to fight and advocate for you as a Bramptonian.
I love her. I
Ask-
love her spirit. I think it's
your
wonderful that we have
current
such a
MPP
very vibrant
why they
and
didn't fight
candidate
for you.
here. But I think we should also talk about facts and reality here, okay? The NDPs are not going to form government, so let's get that off the table. But what you need to ask yourself is, why is Andrea Horvath known? Because she's been the official opposition for 4 years. If she was ever going to form government, it would have happened in 2018 because all Liberals that were going to vote put their support behind the NDPs and they still lost.
That is incorrect.
Here's the
They
reality,
still
folks.
lost.
Over the last
That
4
is
years,
true.
we have been
Okay?
able to decrease
That
the
is
cost
incorrect.
for families where it actually matters. Anyone earning under $50,000 is getting a tax
But what about car
tax break.
insurance?
Thank you so
When
much,
we
guys.
look
Why didn't you
at
do anything for car
$120
insurance?
back in your pocket, decreasing the cost of gas
Only
for
looking out
families,
for their
$10 a
developer
day,
friends.
We can
childcare costs for
Wish
families
we had
across
more
the
time.
Thank
It's
province.
you.
a very important issue. Wish we had more
Affordability
time.
is
Affordability.
important.
Please, come on.
Yes,
We got to move
yes,
on to the
thank
next
you,
topic.
thank
Wish
you.
we had more time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Okay, so this is again open discussion. It's on jobs and the economy. Okay, so we're going to start with Praveen Sakaria, the PC candidate. The past few years have been very hard on Ontario businesses, with tremendous uncertainty during the pandemic, with supply chain disruptions, labor shortage, and now record high inflation. The province's unemployment rate sits at 5.4%, which is slightly higher than the national rate of 5.2%. What is your party's plan in addressing long-term economic recovery, growth, and business competitiveness in Ontario?
Thank you for that question. You know, a government under Doug Ford and the PC party has delivered for Ontario's economy. We have 500,000 more people working today than we did in 2018. You just look at the past 16 months. We have attracted over $14 billion in new electric vehicle manufacturing right here in the province of Ontario. One of those commitments was actually made right here in Brampton. In Brampton, the Stellantis plant will produce a new electric vehicle as the Jeep and SUV, which is going to be a significant boost to workers here in the city. Just a couple months ago, we announced to NDA, a space robotics company, moving their headquarters to Brampton, like hundreds of good-paying jobs. When we look at that, we have $5 billion of new investmts into electric vehicle battery facilities, manufacturing plants in Windsor, $2 billion to Oakville, $1 billion to Ingersoll and Oshawa, Alliston. We are creating an economy that is going to support hundreds and thousands of jobs into the future, and only our government has a vision to build that. And that's going to be completed by building the necessary infrastructure that will allow for the economy to flourish, whether it be by creating jobs through infrastructure, attracting new investments through infrastructure. But only Doug Ford and the PC party have a plan for the economy. Under the Liberal government, we lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs in Ontario. We were having auto manufacturers leave the province, and that was because they teamed up with job-killing policies that the NDP and Liberals put together, like energy costs, rising the cost of energy that made Ontario less competitive. We've been working to reduce red tape. We've eliminated over $400 million of costs for businesses across the province so they can be more competitive, and then they can invest in their employees, they can invest to grow the economy. And only Premier Doug Ford will be able to do that. And that starts right here in the city of Brampton with a $1 billion investment to support a new electric vehicle manufacturing plant that will support thousands of high-paying jobs. In order to keep the economy going and in the right direction, only the Ontario PCs will be able to support that.
I think it's important, and it's wonderful that my colleague here brought up, the cost of energy and the cost of doing business in the city. Doug Ford ran on this promise of decreasing energy costs by 12%, when in fact over the last 4 years it's increased by 4.3%, according to the Financial Accountability Office. The Ontario Liberals are committed to economic recovery here. We know that during the pandemic, due to the chaotic messaging and chaotic governance of this government, there was a lot of opening and closing that really hurt small businesses, whereas big box stores, people that did not need the relief were allowed to stay open, whereas stores in Brampton, downtown Brampton, that had like 15 or 20 customers at any one time were forced to shut down, many of them forced to shut down forever. It was a travesty. And under this government and this idea of like we're open for business, it was sad to see so many Brampton businesses close, especially knowing that my colleague was the Associate of Small Business. They did not do enough to be able to make sure that our businesses were able to survive during the pandemic. In terms of what the Ontario Liberals is committed to doing, is that we're going to offer small businesses 2 years of corporate tax relief. You will not pay your corporate taxes, so that those that have been hardest hit will not have to pay corporate taxes, so that they can get back on their feet. We will remove incorporation fees for all small businesses, new startups that want to start and get their footing off the ground. We know that there's always these cost barriers to starting businesses, and we want to encourage and incentivize entrepreneurs to do great things. Instead of investing in this 413 and spending $10 billion over 10 years to profit only developers that are going to make a ton of money off of this, we're rather going to be spending that money and repairing and rebuilding our schools. That will bring a lot of trades jobs. There's a lot to be done in terms of rebuilding and manufacturing
that is all
jobs.
Good. I just also want to add, small business, we all know, is the heartbeat of the economy. When you're driving downtown, down Main Street, you see many businesses are closed. The NDP government has 2 grant programs available that we were going to support small business. We need to get people back to work. We need to get these businesses open. These are the businesses that support your cricket team and your baseball team and the dance studio. We need to get everyone back to work and get their businesses up and support them to keep our economy growing. Great jobs at hospitals, great jobs at post-secondary institutions. We need to make sure we provide opportunity for everyone who lives in Brampton so they can be successful and find opportunity right in the very same city that they live in.
It's also very important that we talk about the workers. When we talk about businesses, businesses work because workers work them, okay? So the Ontario Liberals offer a balanced approach to be supporting businesses, but also supporting the workers.
Thank you so much. We wish we had more time, and we're almost towards the end of our debate, but I simply cannot ignore this very important issue, that is the housing crisis. They're not saying housing issue anymore, they're saying housing crisis. and I think all 3 candidates would at least agree on this one, that this has been a crisis. So, Andrea, why don't we start with you, our NDP candidate. What's your party's plan for addressing this housing crisis?
Absolutely, there's a housing crisis. We recognize this. Again, talking to people, just knocking on their door. I've had someone say, my 2 university-educated children are in the basement. I need them to be able to afford their home. We know people are thinking of not having a family or slowing down when they start having a family because they can't afford to move out. We need to make sure that there is enough housing for everyone. So the NDP has a plan to build more housing. We're going to be building over 1 million units, mixed use, detached homes, townhouses, semi-detached houses, support homes, affordable homes. We also know the price of housing has skyrocketed. It's practically unaffordable. So we will be helping people with the down payment. Again, helping you put money into things that you need.
I just 10%
down on your down payment so that you can get a home. But you can't get a home until there are actually homes. We will be building homes because that is what we need.
I think it's important that, and I think my colleague from the NDP is correct, housing affordability has gone up about 500,000 over the Ford government. And I think that's important to recognize what's happened over the last 4 years. And we've also committed to what experts have said in terms of the amount of houses that need to be built to meet current and future needs of 1.5 million. The Ontario Liberal plan will create a new Ontario Home Building Corporation that will finance and build housing of all types and will address the waitlist issues and prioritize first-time home buyers. This is what the current government has not been able to address, to recognize that people are really suffering, and we need to be intentional about making sure that those who are looking to get into the market are supported to be able to get into the market. We're also going to be able to introduce rent control to make sure that landowners are not going to exploit and abuse their tenants, but that there will be some measures in place so that people will know what their cost of living and expectations of increases are going to be moving forward, so they can plan and take care of their families accordingly.
Everyone deserves to have a home, and unfortunately both the Liberal and NDP don't agree that the solution and to building more homes and making houses more affordable is increasing the supply. They've actually voted against every one of our bills that we've put forward. Just last year, through our housing supply plan, we have started over the construction of over 100,000 new homes. That's the largest start to new home construction in over 30 years. You know, they can talk a lot, but there's only one government that will get it done and start building and making sure that we cut through the red tape.
It's important
and
to
that's the
recognize
Ontario
they were
PC
there
government.
for 4
We're going
years.
to make
If they
sure
were
that we
going to get
continue
it done, you
building
could
homes
get it done.
and
You've
get
been able
people
to
the
put
houses
forward
they need.
some of your proposals and initiatives that you did want to get done, and you did get done.
Every
But how
single
come we
proposal
haven't
that
gotten
we
the things
put
done
forward,
in here in
unfortunately,
Brampton? What has been
NDP and
happening
Liberals
for
voted
Brampton?
against. We're going to
Right?
cut through the red tape, and we're going to make sure that we put more supply on the market so more people will have the opportunity to buy a house. And only our government will get shovels in the ground.
That's not
Unfortunately,
true.
the two members here voted against every option that we put forward, 7 legislative packages to get the housing developed faster.
Talking about housing affordability, I've listened to your plans and everything in 30 seconds for each one of you. Precise answers that how our viewers would know that yes, as far as the housing crisis is concerned, how would you address it?
We think the solution to this is building more homes. How do we build more homes? We put forward, since we've been elected, new measures through legislation, which unfortunately both the NDP and Liberals have rejected every single time. As I said, we've seen the largest increase in home starts, over 100,000 new homes being constructed, which was the largest in the past 30 years. Our plan is working, more work needs to be done, and we'll continue building on that, but we need to build more homes and more supply.
Like I said, the Ontario Liberals are committed to creating a new Ontario Home Builders Corporation that is going to finance and build the homes of all types that we need. Okay?
And you're talking about the down payment.
Yeah.
ahead.
The Liberals had 15 years. You can't trust that they're going to get anything done. They could have, they didn't. You cannot trust the Ford government because house prices have increased substantially over the last 4 years. The NDP knows that homes are unaffordable. We will help you with a down payment program. We will give you 10% towards the down payment. We are also building more homes. Everyone needs a place to live. Housing, having a home is a human right. We will build more homes for you and your family, or if you're just starting a family, or if you're taking care of your extended family, like your mother and your father. We need to build more homes. We are committed to doing that, and we will help you with a down payment.
Wish we had more time on this one, but I think this is one of the most important issues. Housing crisis is no more an issue, and I hope whichever government is elected, they would do something for this. Ramanaji, I'll pass it on to you.
Absolutely. This is the last item for the open discussion. It's on education, and we're going to start with the Liberal candidate, Marilyn Raphael. And this question is that we've heard a lot about education investment in this election platform in this cycle. What we want to know is when it comes to all this investment to address the students' needs, when it comes to all the disruptions they have gone through the last 2 years due to the pandemic, what is your plan and why is it better than the next party plan?
So I'm so glad you asked me that question. I'm a daughter of school teachers. Both of my parents have taught me the importance of education and hard work and giving back to the community. So education is really very, very near and dear to my heart. The Ontario Liberals have been committed to making sure that our youngest among us have the best start in life. And we have a comprehensive education plan that supports K-12 as well as post-secondary education. One of the number one things that we're committed to doing is capping class sizes to 20. We know that when you have too many students in a class, it is difficult for teachers to be able to manage the class. Students don't get the support that they need. And to be able to cap class sizes as 20, it means you actually invest in education. The current Doug Ford government cut $1.3 billion out of the education budget. That lets us know that despite recognizing how difficult the pandemic was, how difficult it was for students to study at home, they don't understand the importance of investing in young people and investing in our teachers. In addition to making sure that our class sizes are capped, we will make sure that we continue to repair and rebuild. We're going to be building 200 new schools to make sure that we'll be able to give students the best start to life. We also know that repealing Bill 124 is a policy that's going to be important for both healthcare workers as well as teachers, making sure that they are also able to get the increases that are paid well to be able to do the work that they do. We've also committed to increasing OSAP, doubling OSAP so that we can decrease the cost for parents and families. We know that when Doug Ford came in, they made such a terrible cut to OSAP. People that were in line in school were not able to continue their studies because they could no longer afford it. This is not a government that understands education. This is a government that is committed to privatizing education, and they're moving in that direction. We have got to be able to protect these important pillars in our economy. Everything around healthcare and everything around education needs to be well publicly funded, and that's what the Ontario Liberals are committed to doing.
You guys have 3 minutes.
Oh, is it? Oh,
You
yeah,
can
so,
join in.
you know, it's our plan for education. When you look at every single year that our government has been in government, we have spent more on public education than the previous Liberal government. We invested in our students. We have an ambitious plan to build $14 billion of infrastructure projects across schools across Ontario. That includes over 100 that have been announced since 2018, 6,000 childcare spaces that are being built. But let's take a look at the Liberal record on education. The Liberal government closed 600 schools during their tenure of 15 years. That is the most schools that have been closed under the history of any other government in this province. You look at EQAO scores. 50% failed basic math and literacy tests. You know, you look at grade 9 math and the streaming that we removed to help racialize students. These were all facts that the Liberal government ignored. Our government continues to invest in education and continues to make sure that we have the support for students that need it. And that's making sure that there is STEM in our school systems, in our education system. That means that we have to make sure that the supports are there for our students through new schools, especially in areas like Brampton.
But are you investing enough?
Significantly
Are you investing
are
enough?
needed here in the city. We're investing $14 billion to build
I've
new
gone to some of these schools,
because of the schools
they're
that are growing so
falling
far.
apart. I've seen pictures of brick falling apart. It's wrong and dangerous for us to be sending our kids to these schools that are falling apart. The Ford government did not invest enough money in the infrastructure of these schools. EQAO, it's not working out. The teachers don't like it, the education workers don't like it, more importantly, the students don't like it. An NDP government will be getting rid of that. Hybrid learning is not working out. Our students deserve better. This is the next generation, and we owe it to them to give them the best education possible. We will be capping class sizes. We will be dealing with the infrastructure. We will be making sure that your kids have the best chance and the best opportunity of learning. Especially in Brampton, they deserve to be in a clean, safe building with the best education that we can provide. Public education is important. When I was growing up, I went to public school, and it was a great experience. Every young boy and girl in the city of Brampton deserves to have a good education experience. They deserve this. These are our kids. They deserve better.
When the Ford government thinks about education, they think about cuts. And every education worker will tell you that. We know that investing in education is critical for our economic dignity, economic recovery. It's a long-term vision in terms of investing in young people. So while sometimes this government is very short-sighted, they think they're trying to, address the deficit. The reality is, when you spend and hurt kids, you hurt the economy.
Thank you so much. That was the end of Section 3. We're going to the final remarks. And essentially what we're doing here now is we're going to start off with the sentence, why I should be elected your MPP in Brampton South, and just finish that sentence off. And we're going to start with the Liberal candidate, Marilyn Raphael.
Do I say the beginning part, or you're saying it?
I could say it, or you could say it. It's why I should be elected your MPP in Brampton South.
I should be elected your MPP in Brampton South because, like you, I am tired of people coming into office and delivering nothing. I have been watching from the sidelines, wondering who is going to actually be the voice of Brampton South at Queen's Park. And it's very clear that government after government, that people are not recognizing the role that they play. I am committed to making sure that I bring Brampton South's voice to Queen's Park and not bring Queen's Park's agenda to Brampton South. You need someone who is determined, who is committed, who is educated, who is capable, and who's going to fight for you. Because I understand the issues. I am you. I live in the city, and I'm committed to seeing these changes finally get resolved and bring forward the results that we've all been waiting for.
Thank you so much. Again, 1 minute. The next candidate's PC candidate, Parmeet Zakaria. Why I should be elected your MPP in Brampton South.
It's to continue building on our progress for Brampton. It means making sure that we are rebuilding Ontario's economy with good jobs, like landing $1 billion investment in Stellantis right here in Brampton. It means working for workers so you can have bigger paychecks through better jobs and opportunities that we will bring to this province, like we have over $14 billion in the last year. It's about making sure we invest in infrastructure, like building a new second hospital and the Highway 413 that is so desperately needed for Bramptonians across the province. It's about keeping costs low for families, making sure that we put more money into your pocket through tax cuts and rebates like the vehicle license plate vehicle stickers. And it's making sure that we have a plan to stay open and ensuring that we have billions of dollars being spent on building hospitals, making sure we have a new Ryerson Medical School right here in the city of Brampton. It's been an absolute honor, and I look forward to continuing serving as your MPP on June 2nd.
Thank you so much. And NDP candidate Andrea Barrett, please answer why I should be elected your MPP in Brampton South.
Why you should elect me, Andrea Barrett, as your MPP in Brampton South? There are several reasons. First, I love the city of Brampton. I was raised here, my sister lives here, my aunt and my uncle lives here. Brampton is home. I come from a great family, and my neighbors are important to me. Anyone who lives in the city of Brampton, I consider to be my neighbor. I drive on these streets. I pay high car insurance just like you. I support the local businesses. I eat in these restaurants. Brampton is home. Brampton needs an MPP that will fight and advocate so that we can have a better Brampton. Everything has become unaffordable. You need somebody who will fight and advocate for you. You need someone who can help save money on car insurance. Someone who knows what's important to Bramptonians. We want our kids to have great education, go to great schools. We want to have good jobs and make good money. Vote for an MPP that will take care of you and your family for the city of Brampton.
Thank you so much.
And at this point, I'd like to thank all the three candidates for joining us on this debate. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for joining on this debate.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I wish we had more time. I'm sure most of the issues are covered. On behalf of Y Media Group, as a group editor, Jadoo Jaswal, and my closing remarks would be, this is the time to really spring up new ideas. One of the key questions that we should be asking ourselves, when was the last time a highway was built right here in GTA? We should be asking ourselves, when was the last time we had a success story like BlackBerry? Can we make GTA or Ontario the innovation hub, a new Silicon Valley over here? Can we really free up our post-secondary education? Can the university education be absolutely free? Yes, there are Scandinavian countries who've done very well simply because one of the reasons is that they have the post-secondary university education free. Can we have a wait time of absolutely zero? Because if someone is going to emergency department, the wait time in emergency department at least should be zero. It's time to bring up new ideas. We'll carry on the discussion right here on Channel Y. Y Media will cover all these debates not only on Channel Y, but you can read in detail about these debates on our newspaper, Midweek. Listen to these debates on Radio Y, FM 91.9, and also all these debates will be sitting on all our social media platforms, including our YouTube and Facebook. Thank you, Ramonaji.
Thank you so much for joining us for Y Media as we cover all the debates with all the 7 ridings, key ridings that we're watching. We're doing a daily coverage on Y Media Political Sensex. Join us every day as we're bringing the announcements to you and all the live coverage. Thank you for joining us and join in on the conversation. You can give us a call at 416-475-5000 or send us a message on Facebook or YouTube at Y Media. Thank you again and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.